Good evening, everyone. We're in the regular business meeting of the District of Squamish for April 4th, and we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. There's an agenda in front of council. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Yes, the amended agenda. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And just for the public's information, the amended is the addition of appointment of animal control officer under 8C, and I think that's it. Are there any notices? Did I call the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none. First up, we have our delegations, petitions, and proclamations. 4.1 is Hospice Palliative Care Week, and of course we have Dr. Judith Fothergill and Gloria Healy. Welcome.
District Council, thank you for having us here today. I'm here to request a proclamation for Hospice Palliative Care Week, which is the week of May 7th to 13th. The week is to help draw attention to hospice and palliative care services in the community, and we'll kick off the week with our 10th annual Hike for Hospice. Just briefly, the services in the community that the Hospice Society provides are emotional support for folks at the end of life and their families, bereavement support, vigils for the last 72 hours of life, community education, and caregiver support all around palliative care. I also wanted to take this opportunity, as it's an exciting time for us. We are busy with our capital campaign for the Sea to Sky Community Hospice, which is going to provide 4 hospice beds for our community. The approved budget for this by Vancouver Coastal Health is $1.74 million. I just want to express our extreme gratitude to Mayor Heintzman, Councillor Race, and members of this council who advocated for us and were very supportive when we approached the Sea to Sky Regional District Hospital Board and requested 40% of the capital costs, which they granted us. So that, and with some other donations, we are now close to $1.25 million. So we're still looking for just over, our fundraising target is actually $2 million. That 1.74 million is plus or minus 20%. And there are some extra little things we would like once we get into the further design phase. So anyway, we are still looking at raising 0.75 million. We're starting to go out to corporations as the next phase of our campaign. So would like just to request that if you can assist us with any private donors that might cross your paths, we would be very grateful if you'd send them in our direction. And then we hope that once Hospice Palliative Care Week is underway at the Hike for Hospice, we hope to launch our public campaign. And so you'll be hearing a lot more about that as things progress.
Thank you. And
and here we have a picture.
I'm the props person.
Architect's rendering of what our unit will look like, hospice will look like.
maybe the best place to put it is right in front of the podium, and then Kelsey can zoom in on it. Is that right, Kelsey?
Right, please.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
I want to show these people too, though.
Yeah. So I want to congratulate you. I think the hospice has done an amazing job, and getting it this far is a huge accomplishment. And so we'll do what we can to help encourage people to help get this over the line. I know through the Sea to Sky Regional Hospital District Board, we funded $696,000. And if people who don't know what the Sea to Sky Regional Hospital District Board, it is a taxation body that's sort of run through the regional district in terms of administration. But if you look on your tax bill, it's another one of those things. So it is taxpayers in the entire Sea to Sky region that contribute to that body, and we fund capital projects throughout the Sea to Sky corridor. And so we were really pleased and had unanimous support on the board, which encompasses Pemberton, rural Pemberton, rural Squamish, Whistler, and Squamish on that board, and we wholeheartedly support it and wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing its fruition.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Hold on, Councillor Pryor.
Yes, and how many volunteers is there in your group?
We have just had a volunteer training. We have 12 new volunteers, which brings us to
32, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, you
But they're
know,
not all active. Sometimes they have to take, they're volunteers, it takes some time off.
I always think about what people do with their time. You know, some people work really hard, and they make all this money, and other people have sports. And what you people do, I think you're actually angels for what you do in the community. And I really believe that. You're angels. So just so you know that.
Thank you so much.
Well said, thank you, Councillor Pryor.
Yeah.
I will move this, seconded by Councillor Race, and want to encourage people to participate and contribute to your fundraiser, the Hiker Hospice. And remind us of the date for that?
May 7th.
May 7th.
May 7th.
And it's at the Brennan Park Campground area?
Yeah.
Great.
And 9:30 to 1 this year.
9:30 to 1 o'clock. I'll go. What's that?
That's a long night.
Well, I think there's there's a warm-up session, and there's music and hamburgers, and the hike part isn't as long as that. I'll call and I think they have varying hikes. You can go on a shorter hike and bigger hike. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our Director of Engineering, Mr. Chris Gullible Wickham.
Thank
Oh,
you, Mayor
sorry.
Hinsman.
Sorry. No, Chris was actually a big contributor to our April Fool's joke, and I want to thank him for his work on it.
Thank you for outing me to the community on that one. I'm here today to ask that the District of Squamish proclaim April 22nd to 29th, 2017 as Pitchin Week in Squamish. This proclamation would allow the district to take advantage of the national focus of the 50th annual Pitchin Week and build on efforts to increase community awareness of solid waste issues and diversion opportunities. The proclamation encourages and recognizes the efforts of community groups and who promote sustainability by cleaning up our environment. In 2016, we had 20 groups register with over 600 volunteers participating across the community. This year, we already have over 700 registrants. We're asking council and general managers to participate in the fastest picker contest on Thursday, April 27th, where we compete with Howe Sound secondary students for the coveted trophy and bragging rights. And we'll be asking all district staff to participate in 20-minute makeover events throughout the week. And we'll be competing with other municipalities in the Sea to Sky region to collect the most amount of garbage in 20 minutes. More details can be found at pitch-in.ca.
Wonderful. Was that 15th or 50th?
50th, 5-0.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Milestone.
Any questions for Mr. Wickham? Who owns the crown now, the coveted trophy?
That's a good question.
The students.
I think the school,
Oh,
high
yeah.
school students.
This is our year.
I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Chappelle. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Now on to item 4.3, Public Works Week.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Caroline Waters with the Public Works Department, and this is my posse, Ben and Bob. Public Works Week, it all started way back in 1960 as a week-long celebration of everything public works. All across North America, thousands of municipalities use this week to energize and educate their communities of the importance of public works in their daily lives. Planning, building, managing, and operating at the heart of their local communities to improve our everyday quality of life. This year, the theme is Public Works Connects Us. Celebrating the vital role Public Works plays in connecting us, this fits in well with our active transportation plan as it connects our communities within Squamish through our trail systems and bike routes. Our water distribution systems, our roads, our sewer system all connect us, whether we really want to think about all of that or not. Our community is amazing, and many of our residents have a keen interest in learning about Public Works and what we do. May 25th is the day we pull out all the stops and declare it the official Public Works Day. The morning consists of planned educational tours and safe activities for approximately 200 school children, teachers, and parent chaperones. This event is topped off with a CUPE Local 2269 funded barbecue and cake, because there's always got to be cake. In the afternoon of May 25th, the general public are invited to attend the scaled-down version of the tour. In the lead up to Public Works Week, our team has already been out giving presentations about careers in public works at Quest University and Howe Sound Secondary. And we're conducting tours of their treatment plant quite regularly. And in fact, this Friday, we have a group of students from the Squamish Alternative School coming to take a tour of the treatment plant. In the past, we've appreciated all the support we've been getting from Council and the core leadership team, and we're very happy to receive continued support. May I request that Council approve the following resolution, that the District of Squamish proclaim May 21st to 27th as Public Works Week in the District of Squamish.
Thank you very much, and we're really proud of this event and the work that all of you have put into this event. I think it really is a fantastic community engagement, and I know we've gotten awards for this event in the past, so well done, and I know it'll be well attended and a great event again, so congratulations, Councillor Schwab. Move the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Kent. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Well done. Thank you. Consideration of unscheduled public attendance. Is there anyone in the audience who has a matter of urgency that can't wait till the next council meeting? Seeing none, we have one timed item. We have two timed items. The first item up is staff reports, community planning infrastructure. A1, notice on title, section 57, Community Charter, 1806 Willow Crescent.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, this is a deferred...
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, my name is Chad William, Building Inspector. This motion was deferred from the March 21st, as you know. What staff is recommending, once again, is by resolution to instruct the corporate officer to place a building code and bylaw contravention notice on title at 1806 Willow Crescent. My report indicates a number of life safety concerns with regards to unpermitted addition alteration to the property, as well as in recent week, which I've added to the report since the 21st of March. We've recently learned that there's an additional suite that has been added to the property as well. We've since posted a do not occupy notice on the suite, and that would, if staff would accept that recommendation, we would add that to the contravention notice.
Any questions for staff at this point? Council? No? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. This was deferred so that the owners could get counsel. Do you know, have you had any communication with those guys?
Yes, and they are in the
And
room
we will open
here,
the floor.
Councillor.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Heinzman, they are, and the reason was for procedural fairness, I believe, just to make sure that everyone had adequate time to get representation.
Yeah, go ahead.
And the second question is that the life issue, or life safety issue was, if I read the report correctly, was primarily focused around the uninspected or unlicensed electrical. Is that the same as the suite in the building?
Through you, Mayor Heinzman, what the electrical piece that was added to the report was a confirmation that there were no electrical permits pulled for any of the additional work. That was part of the concerns. The rest of the concerns obviously lie with a lack of inspections and verification that all of the life safety systems were put in place properly.
So is it fair to say if it was inspected and was okay, there wouldn't be a problem?
If there was permits and it was inspected, that is correct, Mayor Heinzman.
There's two sets.
Sorry, just to add, Robin has highlighted the fact there are also, this additional suite was added in addition to a permitted suite, so there's actually 2 suites in the house plus the principal.
So there's a separate bylaw.
There's a
issue.
building code issue associated with that as well as bylaw issue with that, yes.
But that's not the focus of this necessarily. This is the life
This is
safety.
the addition.
Yeah. Is the owner or representative of the owner in the property? Hi. Come on up, go to the podium, please, and just state your name, and if you're the owner or represent the owner, that'd be great.
My name is Mayuri Ganatra. I can spell it for you, Ganatra. I am counsel for the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Burke.
Do you mind just pulling the microphone a little bit closer to you? Thank you.
Better?
That's better, thanks.
I'm the representative for Mr. and Mrs. Burke. Mr. and Mrs. Burke engaged the services of Cruz and Associates. They architecturally designed and planned the 2 single-family residential additions to their property. And I received a letter from Luis Cruz of Cruz and Associates, a clarification letter, and he advised that there was a plan prepared by Cruz and Associates, was discussed and presented to the Planning Department of Squamish. After the presentation and discussion, the plan was rejected. However, the Planning Department requested that Cruz and Associates prepare a second plan, the new addition area, to include certain references. Those changes were made, and the letter states that the Planning Department is in agreement with the second plan. So Mr. and Mrs. Burke are a little bit at a loss as to where things are at and what's going on, and then the letter goes on to say that Cruz and Associates completed and fulfilled the requirements of the Planning Department at the District of Squamish on the 7th of July, 2016. With discussions with Chad, I'm advised that he didn't know anything about that. And so I think we need to get some clarification. And the architect has also looked at the safety issues. And I think, there's some dispute about what's being suggested and whether it's safe or not. So Mr. and Mrs. Burke would like the opportunity to have this looked at again before a notice is placed on the title, and see if it can actually be ironed out without going down that road. Because as far as, they tried to do all the steps necessary. So they're a bit of confused as to where the state of play lies.
So I think, I'll go to staff, I think we need to differentiate between a planning department directive versus a building department imperative. I think it sounds like they might have talked to the planning department, but you still have to go through the whole building permitting process.
That's correct.
And inspection process. And that's the piece, the life safety pieces, those inspections haven't happened. And so there's no verification that indeed it's safe, despite an architectural drawing or even an engineer's saying that it has to actually be inspected. And I believe the report said that inspectors basically said they weren't allowed to enter the premises to inspect.
We haven't been into the property to inspect the unpermitted addition. That is correct at this stage.
Okay.
May I suggest then, rather than notice, that we go down the development variance permit route?
Jonas?
If I may, for you, Mayor, there was never a building permit application submitted, so I'm not sure what discussions would have happened between planning and the applicants, and then didn't result in a building permit application. But the variance is not a possibility in this case because they've maxed out the gross floor area ratio that's permitted for this use on the property. So the only avenue really is rezoning to allow for more gross floor area.
I think the addition.
And the applicants have been made aware of that as an option.
Because there's more than just the main residence and one suite, there's 2 suites in the main residence.
Well, it's also the size of the building. We have a maximum size of the building, which is controlled by the gross floor area, and the size has been maxed out. So the addition of that enclosure that was done without a permit, that's beyond what's permitted in accordance with the GFA requirements for that zone.
I think it's 3% over what's allowed by code.
It's over.
It's a
It's over what's
3%.
allowed by the zone.
By the zone,
Yes.
the current zone. But there's another zone that could, in theory, allow it, in theory?
In theory, there could be a new zone crafted to allow it.
Council, any questions? I think the zoning and any of that is a different story. What is in front of us here is the consideration of Section 57 based on the fact that the life safety issues have been addressed through building permits and building inspections.
That's correct.
Councillor Elliott?
So, just so I'm clear on the timeline here, it said that last June, our chief building instructor delivered a rezoning application.
Through you, Mayor Heinzman, that is correct. As a courtesy, because of this gross floor area piece that Jonas just spoke to, we did deliver a rezoning application as one of the only viable options to legitimize the additional square footage that was added without permit. We've never received an application since it was merely a courtesy, just because really that was at that stage one of the only options to legitimize that portion.
For the representative for the Bergs, you said that you were speaking to planning staff as of July. They were speaking.
Not myself,
But
but
the
the architectural
Bergs-
design, yes.
The,
That they submitted as of July, it says here that they completed and fulfilled the requirement of the planning department at District of Squamish on 7th of July 2016.
And what was that planning department requirement?
They wanted alterations to the plan in respect of the addition. So the plan was changed, and it says here that the planning department is in agreement with the second plan.
so we don't have a record of.
I assume that we don't have a record of this. I don't see why the planning department would be involved at this stage when we talk about a single-family dwelling on a single-family lot, unless there was a variance perhaps contemplated at the beginning.
But even if, this wouldn't be necessarily the process anyway, just the architect. You saying the plan, like there's a whole process behind that.
Yes.
Just for clarification, they submitted plans, and so if they submitted plans and then revised plans, according to...
To the architectural design company, they did that.
Through you, Mayor Heinzman, the only plans that we have are the approved drawings from 2012 when the building when the permit was issued for that building. That didn't include the additional suite or the closed-in deck. So the building department has not been made aware of any other drawings to date. We only have one.
Now I'm confused.
Yeah, there's confusion all around, I think.
I think the bottom line here is there's a life safety issue. There was an addition made, regardless of the zoning, regardless of any of that, that requires permits and requires inspections. And they didn't happen. And so the building inspectors, the permits need to be applied for. The building inspector needs to go in and say, yes, you're to code, it is now safe. And then you still have, the owners still have the issue of zoning, the building actually not being compliant with the zoning. That's a separate issue to the life safety issue that's in front of us. So I think from council's perspective, we have to focus in on the life safety issue, the building inspection issue. That's one piece that needs to be resolved, but it's still not compliant with regard to a zoning bylaw. And so another application will have to go through the planning department, and council can then consider that at that time. It's a separate issue from the life safety issue.
And homeowners have no issue with allowing an inspection or anything like that. They're just, like I said, are confused about the whole situation here.
Any more questions, council? Council
Yeah,
Paul?
just a comment, really. Council may be interested in allowing 2 suites in a house.
Well, it's up to the applicant to make that decision, and council can consider it.
I just wanted to say that.
Okay, yeah, I do think there's a life safety issue. I am going to put forward the motion that, I'm on the wrong page, that the District of Squamish instruct the corporate officer to file a building bylaw and building code contravention notice respecting the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 24, Plan BAP 4647, Part S1/2 of S1/4, Section 11, located at 1106 Willow Crescent, and the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under Section 57 of the Community Charter. Is there a seconder? second by Councillor Race. And just so there's clarity, and I'm sure you understand this goes on title as soon as the issues are dealt with and are complied with, it comes off. It's not like a criminal record, it doesn't exist in perpetuity. It's simply to make sure that there's notice on title that these issues have not been resolved. Once they're resolved, it gets wiped clean. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on, development permit number 424, Green Technology Center. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Elaine Naseby, a planner with the Planning Department, and my colleague Jonas Velaniskis is the Director of Planning and Building. And tonight we are excited to present the first building down at the Squamish Oceanfront, now known as Newport Beach. This project is called the Green Technology Center, and it is development permit application 424. It does signify the revitalization of the oceanfront, and elements of this project are likely to be considered precedent in terms of layout materials and planting for future development at Newport Beach. The Squamish Oceanfront is surrounded on three sides with water. To the left is the Cattermole Slough, south is Howe Sound, and to the west is the Mamquam Blind Channel. I'll present the project at a higher level and then drill down after that. So the regulatory elements at the oceanfront, the area is governed by a sub-area plan, which was adopted into the OCP in 2010. This lays out the land uses and policies for the area. The entire oceanfront is part of Development Permit Area 12, which is broken into 8 sub-areas. And the whole Green Technology Center that we are looking at tonight is in one of those sub-areas. The zoning was brought in 2011 to align the previous industrial zoning for the oceanfront to the sub-area plan. And so the Comprehensive Development Zone 69 is what governs this. In 2015, a phased development agreement was entered into between the district and the landowner. So the Green Technology Center is located on the northern portion of Lot 4, so you can see it in the middle of this map. North is to this side of the room in that map there, and so the Green Technology Center project has actually broken into 2 halves. To the western side is the Green Technology Building, and on the eastern side is a research and development facility. So the zoning for this, the Green Technology Building is part of the primary employment land use, and the research and development facility is considered waterfront employment. So those land uses continue to the south of Lot 4. To the north of Lot 4 will be an educational use, and to the west is residential. So a summary of the development site: the Squamish Oceanfront used to be industrial use and was considered contaminated. Lot 4, which the Green Technology Center will be at, it has been awarded a certificate of compliance. Servicing the stormwater is collected from this site and will be directed to a detention pond on Lot 3 to the north per the sub-area plan. And the roads and trails for this proposal follow the sub-area plan layout. Flood mitigation, so the whole oceanfront site will be raised to address flood hazard and rising sea level. So in the range of 2 meters in this location to a 5-meter FCL. And armoring is required against sea level rise. And then Green Shores, the phase development agreement does require efforts to incorporate Green Shores principles into the shoreline design. Here's a site plan of the proposal showing the Green Technology Building to the west and the Research and Development Hub to the east. And here we have 2 site sections. So the Green Technology Building will be a 4-story mixed-use building above an underground parkade. So it's commercial at grade with 3 levels of office above that. The Research and Development Hub is 4 single-story existing buildings that are at the oceanfront that will be repurposed. And so the existing carbon engineering company that is down there will use one of these buildings, and other green technologies are anticipated to fill the other buildings. So a summary of the development plan: the Green Technology Building will provide 140,000 square feet of employment space. The repurposed research and development buildings will provide 40,000 square feet of employment space. One benefit of raising the oceanfront is that it allows parking to be put underground, and so this proposal does provide 250 parking spaces underground. Okay, so then the pedestrian circulation on the site plan, we see sidewalks provided through streetscape design, a greenway to the south, a public greenway, as well as a waterfront walkway along the Cattermole Slough. Bike facilities: the Green Technology Building will provide 2 areas for end-of-trip facilities, and the proposal also incorporates bike lanes. Usable open space: by putting the parking underground, there is space at grade to provide an open green area. And wind, so the building does address wind, and so the top floor is stepped back, and the building, as you can see in this diagram, makes use of the prevailing winds, so they're sucked up through the building to provide cooling. The building also addresses solar with openable windows and vertical exterior shades. The proposal mostly aligns with the existing zoning. However, the applicant is requesting 2 variances. One would increase the building height from 3 to 4 stories, and the second would reduce the interior side setback for the Green Technology Building from 5 meters to 0 meters. So given that the proposed project increases employment space, the design of the building is of a high visual quality, and the site plan offers generous open space, the variance request is supported and aligned with the district's aim to expand employment opportunities at the oceanfront. In regards to the side setback, this is adjacent to a local road that's proposed, and that road includes a sidewalk, a separated bike path, and on-street parking. And so this variance is not seen to interfere with the streetscape, and there's also no commercial street frontage on that side, so staff also supports this variance. So the development permit application's form and character was reviewed by the district's advisory design panel in September last year, where it received support. It was also, there were some comments which were included in the council report for tonight, and so the applicant has addressed those ADP comments. And also attached to the council report was the Development Permit Area 12 Guidelines Review, and so the project generally meets the DP area guidelines. Two items related to the DP area guidelines to be resolved prior to the development permit issuance relate to the waterfront walkway trail lighting and surfacing. So these images show the form and character for the green technology building, showing the glass. There's also stone cladding. So it seemed to be high quality and durable and attractive materials. This is a materials board. Here we're looking at the research and development hub, a section through those repurposed buildings showing the carbon engineering business, as well as a fence that's proposed to secure the site. The proponent has provided a exterior painting design that is meant to sort of address nautical theme by mimicking sort of a ship camouflage, and so that's what they've proposed for the outside of the buildings. And in the inner area, they're proposing that each of the different businesses would provide some common graphics. Here we have a landscape plan for the green technology building. So it's showing the open space, the proposed paving, street trees, the greenway treatment to the south, and the proposed streetscape design. And here we have some of the landscape details provided for that same building, showing more detail regarding the hard landscape elements with lighting, planters, benches, and bike racks. This is a site plan, a landscape plan for the research and development facility. So we see the interior industrial yard that will be secured. There's perimeter plantings, again, streetscape, greenway, and the proposed waterfront walkway to the east. So as mentioned, the phase development agreement does require that the applicant address the Green Shores principles along the Cattermole Slough. So Green Shores is a soft shoreline treatment that aims to armor coastlines against natural hazards while providing habitat, and it is a voluntary certification program. Green Shores has been an objective of the Cattermole Slough of the Oceanfront Peninsula since at least 2007, when the Stewardship Centre for BC did a case study on this location, and Green Shores was identified as an objective in the Oceanfront Sub-Area Plan. So as mentioned, subsequent to the Sub-Area Plan, there is language in the phase development agreement relating to addressing Green Shores. The applicant has identified that it has been a significant challenge to balance the flood hazard concerns for this site while satisfying all Green Shore principles. And attached to tonight's council report is a 25-page report authored by the applicant, identifying Green Shore opportunities that can be incorporated into development along the Cattermole Slough, given flood protection requirements. That report has been reviewed by a qualified professional with Green Shores experience, and that professional has confirmed general support for the Cattermole design and report. So the design, as you can see in this plan, shows anchored logs providing stability to a growing medium that will allow plants to grow on top of the riprap that's required for flood protection. the applicant's report states that the increase in height of the site and the construction of a 3.5 to 1 slope results in some of the Cattermole Slough being filled. So as proposed, the design would increase upland and upper intertidal habitat with a corresponding decrease in the lower intertidal habitat. This is an image from that 25-page report that just shows the existing condition of Cattermole Slough for context. And so my colleague, Jonas Velaniskis, will speak to flood issues for this proposal.
Thank you, Elaine. And before I go on to flood issues, I just want to underline that while the PDA requires consideration of Green Shores principles as a guideline, it doesn't require that this development be certified as meeting Green Shore standards. Because the PDA envisioned that there's going to be a conflict between flood-proofing the site and implementing a full Green Shores approach. So in terms of flood issues, we do have one issue which relates to the setback from the future natural boundary. The phase development agreement has a flood hazard assessment report attached to it, which needs to be followed. The flood hazard assessment report assumes and recommends a 15-meter building setback from that future natural boundary. And it is to deal with erosion protection, and it is also to accommodate future expansion of the sea defense structures. And that is mentioned in the report and recognized. The flood covenant was registered, as I said, with the PDA as a covenant on title. The proponent has submitted an updated report recently in 2017, which recommends a reduced setback. So it recommends reducing it from 15 meters to 10 meters. Reducing the building setback, in staff's opinion, would limit the district's ability to install future flood protection around the site. This is going to be, the flood protection system on the oceanfront is going to be part of the downtown flood protection system. So it is very important that we have enough room to build a dike in the future that's a standard dike. And a standard dike, according to today's standards, would require a 15-meter setback from the natural boundary. The 15-meter the recommendation comes from provincial flood guidelines. So it is to plan for a 1 meter in sea level rise by 2100 and then 2 meters in 2200. Protect raised buildings for anticipated conditions over the lifespan of the building, which is the 1 meter, and then plan for future protection beyond the lifespan of the building, which is the 2 meters, and that's out of the provincial guidelines. And that the rationale for those guidelines is to set back buildings beyond that. The provincial policy does recognize that there may be areas where departure from the guidelines are warranted, but it's only warranted where the setbacks would sterilize the lot as unbuildable, which is not the case here. So the proposed setback from the applicant is 10 meters to the buildings. There's a few problems with this. It wouldn't meet the typical dike geometry. The proposal by the developer shows the future dike being located on top of riprap, which is the point right here. Whereas our understanding is that a standard dike would actually have to be built at the edge of riprap, so we'd have to start here. And in red here, we've sketched in what a future dike, a standard dike, would look like with respect to where the building is currently located and where the outside toe of dike would be located. So the recommendation is to maintain a condition that's included in the staff recommendation, which would require a 15-meter setback from that future natural boundary for all buildings on the site. And the rationale is, as I laid out earlier, is to make sure that we have enough room in the future, the district, to implement feasible flood protection. Thank you.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Council, are there any questions at this point? Councillor Kent and Councillor Coyle and Councillor Schmidt, Councillor.
Just looking at the Green Shores update.
Excuse me. Sorry, if I may. We're not actually done. I was done with the flood section, but there's still more.
And there is an opportunity for the public to speak to the variances, so we'll just hold that for now. We'll just get all the information. Okay, you guys keep going. You guys sit pretty.
If we have questions on the flood part in particular before he moves on.
Would you like to break it down into topics, or do you want to
I think it would make sense because it'll probably come down a lot with the flood.
We'll do questions based on the information we've gotten so far. Councillor Kent.
Question on, in this form here, the Green Shores update. Just looking at 5.3, and there's a line here in the middle paragraph that says, prerequisite of the program is to set back permanent structures of a new development a minimum of 15 meters from the natural shoreline as a means to protect the shoreline environment. It says in increasing the height of the site and the construction of the 3.5 to 1 slope results in some of the catamaran being filled. How much, can you estimate how much of the catamaran might be filled? Ballpark? Just curious as to what that may look like.
I'll just go to the end of this presentation. There was a couple of extra slides that I included, and I'm not sure if they'll come out. These are in that same report that you just referenced, and so these actually are showing they're not showing like a line from exactly where it will be filled, but it's showing existing habitat versus proposed habitat. So it gives that sort of brown color is the muddy flat habitat existing versus proposed.
And any fill in the channel would have to go through DFO and the navigable channels branch of the federal government.
That's what to do with any dike bill. Councillor Parr?
Well, I don't know if I heard planning right. You are not supporting a setback reduction?
We recommend upholding the original report that was attached to the PDA, which requires a 15-meter setback for the buildings for flood protection purposes from the natural boundary.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm okay with that. I was just, you know, I recall the advisory design panel talking about.
So let's focus on questions.
Well, so on the map we have here showing the water, tide function, all this habitat above, I mean, it all shows as eelgrass. That's supposed to be under the water. And this one here. Eelgrass is, see that whole top section?
Yes.
So what's with that? I mean, eelgrass doesn't grow above the water. It only grows in the tidal area.
And just to confirm, QP has basically sanctioned or given support to this Green Shores approach, this Green, I'll put in quotations. And so I'm suspecting they're the qualified professional and they're planting things where they should be planting things.
That's right, and this kind of replicates the type of environment that there is and habitat in the channel right now.
Councillor Chappelle, I'll come back to you.
Thank you. I'm more interested in the, you showed the massive 50-meter dike. Are they not filling the site already to meet flood hazard management plan, the SDL? And then do we maintain the ability to add a wall to the dike afterwards on top of any urban planning that goes on around the edge? So you showed the red dike on top of, yeah. Is that including the fill and the raising of the site? So on top of the raising of the site, they're also required to put a 50-meter dike in?
No, that will be the district in the future, in 100 years or so. When the sea level rises to a certain point, we will have to add additional protection.
And the 15 meters is the setback to theoretically take up the toe and the toe on either side.
Yes.
Although, like we've done the map on Blind Channel, we only have vertical and no toe because the building's built into it. And with the 10-meter setback, the building would be built into the toe on the inland side.
That's right. It's, if you're going to do sheet pile, from what I understand, it would be more costly for the district to
Well,
do
we
that.
don't want sheet pile here, but yes.
Yes. Ideally, this is the section that we would be going through. The standard dike would actually require a 7.5 meter setback from the toe of the dike to the building. But we recognize that in the PDA, we have agreed to a 15 meter setback, and so we're trying to hold to that. But ideally, there'd be another setback from the toe off the dike, 7.5 meters to where the building starts.
Except in theory, in this lot, there won't be a toe because it's just all filled in.
Yes, but in the future, there will have to be some form of protection built on top of that.
Thanks,
Councilor Ray?
Yeah, thank you. So, I'd asked if it was possible for staff to confirm, just to step back a little bit in history, with the Squamish Estuary Management Plan, and trying to place this all in context. If I understand it correctly, and my knowledge frankly comes from conversations around 2007 when I was on the SODC board around this area, my recollection is that the Squamish Estuary Management Plan did not designate this as green shores. It was potentially developable and was part of the compensation for lands to the west, which are now the wildlife management area, which were given over to an environmental reserve. Are you able to confirm that? Or?
Mayor Hensman, through you, I might ask my general manager whether he has a comment on that.
And maybe further to that is, does it matter? Because the PDA specifies
Well,
it's green shores.
I appreciate that, but there's an issue about whether or not, because not an issue necessarily, but there's not complete compliance with green shores, and so I was just trying to place this in context.
So in response, from what I can read in yes, it says yes, this area can be designated. It can be developed for industrial, commercial, and other uses. And quick scan, I don't see a reference to green shores anywhere. It's a quick scan.
I think the concept of green shores came up as a designation after the Squamish Estuary Management Plan was developed.
No, I appreciate that, but my recollection when I was on the board was that this was additional environmental reserve, in effect, or lands available as a soft edge over and above what was required in the Squamish Estuary Management Plan. And I just wanted to I guess, make that point. That's not really a question. But the other question with respect to the dike, I noticed in the report that this particular proposal is also going to set a precedent for basically the ocean front, not necessarily the soft edge, but generally for other treatments, and certainly up and down the Cattermole. And so I understand then from that this, the basic fill level and the additional possible dike level will be the standard set for going around the entire oceanfront peninsula. Am I correct in saying that?
Mayor Heinzman, through you, for the Cattermole Slough side, yes, the Mamquam blind channel is envisioned to be a harder edge.
Up to the same height.
Yes.
Yes.
And further to that, if the setback is 10 meters here, it's still 15 everywhere else, or if we give this one particular lot of variance, we're not giving a variance for the whole peninsula, are we?
Unless the district and the property owners amended the phase development agreement to attach another report that says you only have to do 10 meter setback.
It would be a 15 meter setback on all other lots unless the variance was requested.
Yes.
Councillor Oud?
Can you clarify for me why a variance has been requested? I'm not clear on that, because I would understand if it was not a greenfield site, but I don't.
So it's not a variance in the sense of development variance permit. It's a variance. It's a departure from a recommendation in a phase development agreement. the geotechnical recommendation. It's been,
Okay, so I'll change my wording.
it's,
Why is this being requested?
perhaps the applicant could
Yeah, I
best
think
speak
the
to it.
applicant, and we're not gonna do that right now, we're gonna wait to go to the public, I wanna hold that question, we'll make sure the applicant.
But the logical scenario is that to maximize the buildable area upland, because there's limited potential on filling the slough, because it is already very narrow. And so going further out into the slough would probably be very problematic with respect to a navigable channel.
From my understanding, these are all repurposed buildings on this particular, on the west side. They're all buildings that are currently over,
Mayor Hensman, the east side of the Green Technology Center is for repurposed buildings.
West.
The west side.
West side.
Sorry, west.
of the carbon engineering site?
Yes.
Yes. And so, that big long one, the one that's in the setback is a repurposed building?
Yes,
Those two are repurposed buildings?
those, I think there's supposed to be 4 buildings. They're showing
The
us.
ones that are in this setback area? Just trying to understand, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Pryor? So we're focusing on a question.
Yeah, well, you've got 60 acres, and you want 5 more feet. That I don't understand.
Well, okay, that's
So-
a statement.
Yeah, but, so the repurposed buildings, I mean, I couldn't read all the writing on there, it was too small. Those eventually will be housing, that area?
No, that area is envisioned for employment lands.
Employment lands, but not housing units for employees,
On this side?
yeah.
No.
No housing on the site.
Yeah, I mean, I want as much trail property for the community as we can get.
Okay, we're focusing on questions. You can make statements about how you're going to vote later, once we hear from the public. Any more questions for staff at this point?
The repurposing of the existing building, does that building sit on a piece of land in the PDA? I was just trying to go through the PDA to find out if that's already purposed for that sort of building and employment, or if it's a relocation. Does it matter where the zoning goes as far as, that's the entrance?
Maybe we'll hold that question for when the proponent wants to speak to, I'm just chalking up the topic for the proponent to talk to when.
Perfect, yeah, I'd like to understand if that conforms to the PDA zoning, to keep that building there,
Yes. To keep it where it's proposed?
the existing building,
No,
No.
it has to be moved.
it's
then.
going to be moved into the appropriate zone.
Okay, do you want to keep going?
Just one minor comment in that when we discussed the 15 meters, I believe it's important to make sure that we're evaluating that on the merits of flood protection and not, trail development, because the proponents actually meet the zoning setback of being 20 meters away from the water. So it's really a flood protection issue.
Councillor Pryor, did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that. I just want as much trail room for the community as we can get. So if that's the case, that's good. I mean, the way it's set up now, we've got a 9-foot trail and then 10
I wasn't
feet-
actually giving you the
10
floor,
feet to the
Councillor
building.
Pryor. Just making sure you heard that. Okay, I want to move forward on the agenda, please.
Okay.
So the Green Technology Center proposal aligns with the district's strategic plan and policy. The proposal is generally in alignment with the sub-area plan, and it is seen as a positive contribution to employment lands, providing all told 180,000 square feet of employment space. The district's employment land strategy recognizes that the long-term development of the Squamish oceanfront is a critical component of the district's overall employment lands inventory. And for budget, in time, there will be a need for increased operations budget at Newport Beach, and that will be for additional servicing of streetscapes, waste, snow clearing, and trail maintenance that currently operations is not maintaining. One public comment was received in relation to this proposal, and I'm going to mention that it was provided in September of last year, so there were 3 elements to the comment, and the first was for the Green Shores treatment. The applicant has subsequently revised their Green Shores proposal, so this comment might not relate to the more current version. So the comment was primarily a comment of not meeting a certification, but as we've already pointed out, the PDA does not require certification. The other comment was concern of access to the water for dogs and people, so to any sort of sensitive habitats. So in response to that, the applicant's Green Shores report states that trail features within the slough will be designed to restrict public access from sensitive habitats while enabling intertidal viewing. Another part of the comment related to the surfacing, recommending against gravel surfacing for the waterfront walkway. And so, as mentioned, we are in discussion with the applicant to pave the waterfront walkway. And the last comment related to the width, and so the comment was that they thought that 3 meters was too narrow for a waterfront walkway of this magnitude looking into the future. And so in response, the phase development agreement has regulations around the widths of walkways, and so the 3 meters aligns with that. The recommendation is that council approves the following resolutions. So issuance of development permit 424 with some subject to conditions. And so the first is stat right-of-way for shoreline protection and maintenance of 15 meters. Landscape cost estimate, provision of bonding for landscaping works, a boulevard maintenance agreement, confirmation of meeting phase development agreement conditions that were listed in a table in the council report, and the zoning variances as discussed, so the height from 3 to 4 stories and the side setback from 5 meters to 0 meters. And then just some more detail on that, those phase development agreement conditions as a subject to condition. One is a public right-of-way for trails, a finalized flood hazard assessment report, registration of that flood hazard report, as well as seismic protection specifications on title, and more specifications related to the waterfront walkway and the Greenway Trail. Thank you.
Any more questions at this point? Councilor Chappelle, Councilor Brown?
For the recycled building, I'm just curious as to why the proponent would want to recycle an old building instead of
So
use.
we'll let the proponent speak to that.
Yep, exactly. I'm asking so the proponent can speak to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll hold that. I'll go to the proponent in public in one moment.
Or why we would allow that.
Okay, well, Jonas can speak to that.
Yeah.
Well, there's,
Modern building techniques and doing.
those buildings will have to be repurposed and repainted. They're gonna be relocated, there's gonna be some significant structural upgrades that they'll have to undergo. They'll have to have a building permit, but there's nothing in the zoning bylaw or the PDA or the sub-area plan that would prevent repurposing the building in that location.
There's no standards of building that we have to adhere to with, as far as energy consumption, if it's going to be moved into a green technology center, that they want to provide perhaps a LEED standard or some other higher effort of building than the old shed.
Well, it will have to meet today's standards when it gets moved.
I guess that's you have no bylaw.
And this is a light industrial zone, and so that's sort of the purpose, is you're going to find warehouse-type buildings down in this area.
I was just thinking perhaps more energy efficient warehouse. Better than repurposing of them. sheds if they're gonna move it.
I kind of like the idea of taking something and repurposing it and making it new again. So, I mean, I like the idea that they're
Energy
actually
efficient, I'm fine.
Well, that's not a given though. The proponent can speak to that. Councillor Pryor.
Yeah, there's one here, enhance interpretive nature of the oceanfront walk by adding signage, both historical and natural features. And it says creation and protection of upland habitat. There are a number of opportunities for upland habitat, so that's upland on the upside of the trail, right?
Upland from the water.
Yeah, opportunities.
From the water, not
upland.
from the trail.
The oceanfront walk allows for a natural habitat and a healthy 25-meter riparian setback along Macadam. So is that 25-meter setback?
Can you repeat the question?
Well, I'm just reading what's in the environmental sustainability habitat enhancement thing here, section 57214, creation of and protection of upland habitat. There are a number of opportunities for upland habitat creation in the plan. The oceanfront walk allows for a natural habitat and a healthy 25-meter riparian setback along Macadam. I mean, I always thought there was more than.
Mayor Heinzman, through you, there are different setback distances in different documents,
Yeah.
and so that 25 meters is from the sub-area plan. And so the phased development agreement supersedes that dimension in the sub-area plan
And the zoning bylaw.
and the zoning bylaw as well.
Yeah, I wish the habitat people were here for this, because I remember in the ADP, there was a lot of discussion about this setback, and also the camouflage on the side of the building. I didn't think that was supported in the ADP either, but
The ADP minutes are in the report, Councillor Pryor.
I've been looking for them.
Go to the public now. Does the proponent wish to speak to this? And with these DP public hearing, it's on the variances in particular that we are looking for feedback.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the time. First of all, I'll answer.
First of all, who are you?
I'm Michael Hutchison, 37989 Cleveland Avenue. Simple questions, if I may. It's not eelgrass, it's just grass planting that was recommended by the Green Shores. So it's not eelgrass, it's grass. On the paving of the trail, we're open to either gravel or asphalt. There's pros and cons of both. Asphalt, you ride your bike on, go fast. Gravel, the dogs like better. We had no particular bias one way or the other, whichever council feels is in the public's interest. I think there's a lot of setbacks that get talked about here, and we get caught here, and I think the best way to describe this is between a rock and a hard place. And if Jonas doesn't mind going to the picture with the red lines, I think you'll get to the point where we are. The PDA is quite clear on one point. It was negotiated very passionately for a long time, and that is how much of a setback goes around the outside of the oceanfront. And it was 20 meters, and you can see it up there in 20 meters. And so the reason why Green Shores was a recommendation and not written into the PDA as a must, it's only something we said we would consider, is because you're caught between trying to build shoreline protection to the year 2020, 2200, 180 years from now, and trying to make a Green Shore slope, which is 1 to 3.1 to 3 slope. So if you want to build a Green Shore, you have to have low slope, and if you want to build shoreline protection for sea level rise for the next 200 years, you have to build a steep slope. And so those things obviously are in conflict with each other. And so in your package you have this particular drawing. And this drawing is of the flood protection within our 200 meter, within our 20 meter setback. And I think just for everybody's, put this in perspective, this building the length of this room is 10 metres. So our setback is twice the width, or twice the length of this building. That's what 20 metres looks like. We designed this, which is riprap. It's hardscape, and it meets all the requirements. It's within the 20 metres. It is the 15 metres of the dike, and it allows you in the year, 180 years from now to add an extra metre for splash protection. That extra metre is not for sea level rise because it's already risen above the 2,200 level. This is simply for splash protection 180 years from now. So I think that point should be clear. So there, if we're not going to consider green shores, here's what you get to. So what we said when we brought that to staff didn't like that very much. And so we said, okay, consider green shores, and so we have with a 45-page report. And we get to this. And this is a compromise. Yes, the riprap moves back a little bit, and actually the outer toe of the riprap, sorry, so many drawings. You go back to this one. The outer riprap, anyway, the outer riprap here is actually 12 metres and not 10. And if in the year 2,200 you did actually get all that sea level rise and you did want to have splash protection, you could also achieve the same thing, not with a dirt gravel dike, 1 metre. You could simply put up a seawall of 1 metre. And so that was our suggestion. Staff have rejected that suggestion. And if you could go back to the red line, that's clearly the problem here. What they've suggested to us, you'll see the 20 metre in black there, is that they take an additional 5 metres out of our developable land. The PDA is clear. The setback is 20 metres, not 25. You're taking 2 acres out of 40 acres of buildable land. We have 40 acres, not 60. By the time we take all the setbacks and roads out, we have 40 acres. That's 5%. That's expropriation of our land because you want to put green shores and the dike and not allow them to flex. When we did the PDA, it was recommended, we said we would consider it, not uphold it. So we've done the best we could to consider green shores. We have another 49 metres going into the slough. So if these things are not good enough, I suppose we can move it further. It should be noted that this land is has to be capped because it's contaminated soil. So we have to put a 3 metre cap. To the answer to Councillor Kent's question, we put a 3 metre cap on a 3-to-1 slope. It's about 5 metres at the toe into the water.
Thank you.
That's about it. I realise that going down from 15 metres on the dike to 12 is a change from what the provincial guideline is, but it is a guideline. It's not a hard and fast standard. I think there's many reasons to do it, and green shores is clearly a good reason to do it. But this is to take away that land at this point. It's not acceptable to us. We're not going to do that. We're not going to give up that land. It's not what we agreed to. It's not in the PDA. Setback is 20 metres. Council can make a decision around green shores and the way you want to do the dike within that 20 metres, and you can achieve that in any way possible, any way you like. You can have any number of different types of treatment. But to say that we must lose 2 acres of our land for something that's going to happen in 180 years to protect the site from splashing in 180 years, I think it's too much. And it's not what we agreed to. Also, I think if you look at the net present value of that land and you say, what is that land worth to us? I think that's somewhat irrelevant, but what is it worth to the people of Squamish? Because also that land will not be used for employment. You're losing 2 acres of employment land. You're losing 2 acres of land that you would be taxing on. I think it's a lot to give up for splash protection 180 years from now. That's it.
Ask a quick question, then I'll go to Councillor Pryor. You said that in the PDA it was agreed to 10 metres.
in the original, I have it, in our original, 20 meters is the total setback. In our original submission of the Tetra Tech study to our lawyers, to your lawyers, the setback was 10 meters. That's the use we had. But remembering, and that's the report, that's 10 meters. Remembering these are not engineering standards. This is not like a roof truss must be. These are suggestions, and they're just numbers inside a calculation, inside a piece of algebra, and they can be moved around to achieve what you want. But later on, when it got registered, the front page of a different report is registered, but the whole report is not in the PDA. So there is no report in the PDA. It didn't make it on the document.
Is it referenced in the PDA?
No.
But it's registered on title as 15, but it's not referenced in the PDA.
It's not registered on title as 15.
Oh, it's not?
No. There's what's registered on title, one page.
Mr. Buxton?
What appears to have happened is that we've registered the covenant and there's just the one cover page of the Tetra Tech report. There appears to be two versions of the report, one at 10 metres, one at 15 metres, that were produced very close together, neither of which is attached to there's only the frontispiece, only the page 1 attached to the PDA. So
Staff's deciding to go with one version of the report, and the developer is saying the other version of the report is relevant.
yes, we've been working in good faith at 15 metres. The developer is saying that, well, there are two reports out there, one is at 10, one is at 15. As we sort of focusing in, no, I'll be quiet, I'll answer the question, sorry.
Mr. Ralston, you have to come to a table.
Mayor Council, my name is Dave Wilson, Municipal Engineer for the District of Squamish. I was involved in reviewing the flood hazard assessments during the phase development agreement, and setbacks has been a concern of mine from early days. There was an initial report that said 10 meters setback. I had concerns with that, in that it didn't meet the provincial guidelines, and I feel it compromises the district's ability to provide flood protection in accordance with the guidelines and to accommodate 2 meters of sea level rise. So I provided comments back and said the district standard is 15 meters. That's what we've been communicating to other developers of coastal sites, and asked that they change the report. They changed the report, and my understanding is that the revised report with the 15-meter setback is what certainly was supposed to be registered on title. I don't know what was actually put into the PDA.
And is, okay, I'm even more confused now. Councillor Chappelle?
Thank you. So what was registered was the 10-meter setback, but what was recommended was 15.
It sounds like nothing was registered.
Nothing's registered.
Nothing's in the PDA, nothing's registered on title. We have some internal policy that says 15, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, can I just ask one more question? Is it splash protection or is it sea level rise protection? Are the timelines correct, 180 years for splash protection as opposed to sea level rise protection?
So it's for coastal flood protection, which is wave overtopping. So that 15 meters is for wave and erosion protection, and also to provide space for future dike construction. And so I wanted to remind council as well, in the integrated flood hazard management plan, when we were going through the final phase of finalizing the sea dike alignment, council requested that we maintain the ability to build a dike around the ocean front. And so this is an important piece of that, is to maintain that flexibility and actually to have the space to build it. So we have a lot of situations in Squamish where we have landside development encroaching on the dike, and in order to upgrade the dike, we have to remove riprap, fill into the water. It's just a lot more costly and complex to do that versus just having the space on the land side to extend the dike and build it over towards the land side. So the intent here is to make it easy and low cost and lower environmental impacts in the future to build the flood protection.
How much in the future?
It would be after 1 meter of sea level rise is when we would need to build something. So
What-
beyond year 2100. And it would be a dike, so it would be, if the inspector of dikes is still around in year 2100, then it would be a regulated structure, which means that, you know, a little 1 meter barrier would not meet provincial standards. So it'd be unlikely to be
Provincial
inspected.
standards of today, who knows what provincial standards will be in 80 years from now?
And they're just getting more and more stringent as time goes on with seismic standards and increased geometries, so it's, they're not getting less strict.
Can I just get one more clarification? I know initially when we did the integrated flood hazard management plan, we excluded the oceanfront because someone else was building it. And it wasn't part of our whole study. And you're saying the last one we brought it back into the integrated flood hazard management plan, but we haven't seen that revision come back in front of council yet?
So council is, it's called Special Study Area 2, and the point of that, council directed that staff maintain Special Study Area 2 to determine whether and how to incorporate SODC flood protection into the overall CDEC alignment.
But that can't supersede the PDA.
No, but I don't think that the PDA speaks to that in particular.
No, I think that's the problem, is the PDA doesn't speak to it because it wasn't included somehow. Councilor Prime.
Yeah, thank you. Just on this plan here, I don't see the distance between the trail and the building. But all the other dimensions in there. Is that like 12 feet?
Yeah, there is requirements in the PDA for the buildings to be, I think, 6 meters away from the trail.
6 meters?
Yes,
18 feet.
yes.
You know, so when arguing this, sorry Pete, but, you know, for me, I mean, it sounds like there's nothing written in the regulation. It doesn't matter what anyone says, it wasn't written down. You just got a report that nobody's registered. The report says 2 distances. And I had always thought that there was going to be a fair separation, and it's because of the design of the long sloped dike that we've got the trail way up on the top and right close to the buildings. And so if we're going to have, like the buildings, the temporary structures that go in there, will they someday be replaced with 2- and 3-story buildings?
The buildings might not be around in 100 years from now. I mean, just like any other building
Might not,
that's
yeah.
built.
But will they
today.
be replaced? I mean, or is that a totally different thing, a whole new question?
There'll be a new development permit or whatever permitting they have in the future.
You know, right now, we've got a waterfront walkway going all down that side, and all of a sudden, there's going to be a building 12 feet from that trail all the way down that side.
Which is in line with the standard that was set in the PDA.
Yeah. Depending on the style of dike, it could have been, you know, the trail could be way out there, and it could be a different type of structure than this. But I mean, we're arguing a meter right now, so we could get a meter farther away from that building if we support staff. If we support a meter closer.
5 meters.
5 meters?
Well, it's not,
5 meters.
can I
15.
clarify this? I think Councilor Pryor's talking about the distance from the trail to the building.
Yeah.
You're talking about flood protection setback, not a other type of setback. And so it wouldn't necessarily move the trail away from the shoreline necessarily, would it, if we got a larger setback?
No, there is a certain standard in the PDA that requires the trail to be so far away from the buildings, and it's completely unrelated to the flood setback. So the trail, you could have the buildings further away and the trail further away from the shoreline, as long as it meets that standard in the PDA.
Yes, Mr. Hutchison.
If I may, we're not standing here saying no to the 15 metres. If you want the 15 metres, you go back to the red line. We're happy to build you 15-metre flood protection with riprap within the 20 metre right of way. What we're not happy to do is take the 20 metres and turn it into 25 metres. Go from 60 feet to 75 feet. If the red line is at the back of the building and you push the toe of the dike out, which is what this drawing does, then okay. What you're not going to have is green shores. So if you want the 15 metres, we can give you the 15 metres within the 20 metre right of way that we've agreed to. Or we can compromise a little bit. And you won't be the first person to compromise a little bit around the edge of the ocean. All of Granville Island's 10, City of Vancouver's 10, same. And you can have a green shore approach. Either way, we're putting a 3 metre cap on the contaminated soil. I think this is a choice where you can have one or the other. I would like to suggest what that is you take and eat it too. This is where you have the slope for green shores and you take the extra 5 metres out of our land. That's not what we agreed to in the PDA. It's not what we signed up for.
Can staff confirm that?
We have somebody checking the PDA right now to confirm what was agreed in the PDA. Our understanding was that the sign report we have from Tetra Tech was attached to the PDA, which said 15 meter setback.
Even at 15 metre setback, I'll say it again, we'll give you the 15 metre setback within the 20. So just take your dike and move it 5 metres this way into the 20 metres. Right?
And it's probably possible to do that.
No, we have a drawing of it right here. We sent it to you. There is the drawing of it.
Yes, it would have to go through the inspector of dikes. He would, and the inspector of dikes would apply the standard. And so our drawing is based on those standards of today. It's possible that we could probably do a sheet pile dike or something like that. It's only more costly. And if we don't have
I
the
don't think
required
anyone's
space.
interested in doing a sheet pile dike on Caribou.
No, and this picture is of exactly what the inspector of dikes will ask for. That is 15 metre dike. There's your setback, and it's within the 20 metres. We're not arguing about which kind of dike you build. We're just arguing about the location of it. The staff wants to push it into the zoned industrial employment lands. You say you've got 20 metres, it fits in there, one way or the other. So if you want the riprap dike that's 15 metres, so that you can build the splash protection in 180 years, we'll build it. If you want the green shores, where you have a 12 metre, probably $12 million worth of dike of hard riprap, and you'll see it all in there, that's the riprap, and then the green shores over the top of it, then relax the hardscape a little bit. And going down from 15 to 12, I don't think is a huge loss to anyone, but I'm happy with the other one. What we're not prepared to do is to give you 25 metres because we agreed to 20.
That's helpful. Go ahead.
I like what you just said about going down to from 15 to the 12, kind of splitting the difference. I'm figuring because you're saying you're putting 3 metres in, and then your fill is going to take you out 5 into the Cattermole. So if you slide the whole thing that way, you're losing about 15 feet of a green shore by moving the dike to that side, which I don't think is too catastrophic of a loss. In my book.
The building that is, the two buildings that align where the dike is, so they are one is the blue, which one is the blue warehouse?
The one, Blue Pine is the long thin one that sits in the picture along the edge.
That's along the edge. And what is this a repurposed building too, the one that's perpendicular to that?
Yes, they're all the 3 buildings that exist. And they're actually leased, or in process of being leased. We have tenants for them all. And they were very specific about their needs, the lay-down area, the parking area. It's pretty tight as it is. You'll see we squeeze them in there quite tight. And if I may answer Councillor Chappelle's question to you, there's no energy loss in these buildings. They're not heated or cooled. They are really industrial buildings. Many of them get the holes cut in the roof and cut in the walls. They're really there just for rain protection of equipment.
I'm trying to understand, you're saying that it could be a 12-meter setback?
Yeah, my geotechnical engineer is here, Mr. Steve Fuffenoff, and he tells me in this drawing that the toe of the dike right here is in fact about 12 metres. So in this drawing where the original log is, if you put riprap up into here and took the first log out, you'd have a bit of a step down on the green shore. You'd get very close to what you're looking for. So this can be adjusted at any point. Adding a little bit of riprap at a later date is not very hard to do. And really, to not have this treatment for 180 years, because you may at some point want to change to splash detection, seems tough to swallow.
So any more questions about the variances or specifics about the variances? And any issues about the variances that staff support?
But just, well, I think our staff's supposed to be clearing something up for us right now.
Okay, I know that. I'm just asking, I'm just trying to check off so we don't have to go backwards in the conversation. Are there any issues with the variances that staff support? No. Okay. So we have an update on the PDA?
We don't have an update on the PDA.
Okay. Councillor Race.
Thank you. On the drawing that was delivered tonight, in the front page, and Mr. Hutchison mentioned it, the possibility of a concrete wall going up there. It shows here as on a dotted line as a 1 meter splash protection. Staff have an issue with that? Is there something specific that is not acceptable about that?
Mayor, that would be considered a dike, and there's provincial diking standards that we basically mimic the provincial diking standards with that red superimposed version. So, an earth-filled dike has a 2-to-1 waterside slope, a 4-meter wide crest, and a 3-to-1 landside slope. That's what the provincial inspector of dikes would. I'm confident that they would accept that. I'm not confident that they would accept some kind of block wall or something along the top of the bank.
So this has to go to the inspector of dikes? If we gave the variance to 12 meters, 10 meters, whatever, this has to go to the inspector of dikes?
So the inspector of dikes, we've had some correspondence with them, and we've asked them if they're going to be regulating this. They said they require us to submit the flood report from the developer's QP, and they're going to review it and determine whether or not they're going to regulate it. But almost certainly in the future dike protection would be regulated. Present day, maybe not. We need to find out from the inspector of dikes.
But on the Mamquam channel right now, in front of development, we have a vertical sheet pile dike, which was accepted. So the measurements with the slope and so forth, I mean, there are alternatives to that. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, that was a very unique design, and we had to have peer reviews, and it was quite involved because it wasn't a typical standard dike. But yeah, there are, you can have alternatives approved. It's just not the usual.
Yes.
Since we're kind of sort of following Green Shores, so we're not have them certified, to Mr. Hutchison's point, is there not a way that we can tinker with the top of this treatment to create the space we need? Maybe creating, like Mr. Hutchison said, a bigger step down for people that want to walk down to the water, or possible access points, just to create that 15 meter. I mean, since we're kind of creating this.
I think in a sense too, Green Shores, we don't want people walking in the Green Shores. We don't want dogs walking in the Green Shores.
Right, so can we design the top a little bit differently to have us, that would prevent people from stepping down there.
I think when I look at the drawing, the dike can't be built over top of the Green Shores, and so that's why we extended the dike starting from the riprap and moving to the land side of that. You can't build a dike on top of the Green Shores because it's not approved material, it's vegetation. So we basically start from the riprap and move to the land side. That's what is most common when you're upgrading a dike.
But if our riprap started closer to the water side, towards the top of the Green Shores tree.
Yeah, if the riprap was 15 meters away from the building and it's either the building moves or the riprap moves, something moves, as long as there's 15 meters between the riprap and the building, then there's going to be space to build the dike.
But as Councillor Race pointed out, there's space to build another type of dike potentially in the future.
Possibly, but it's not meeting any kind of provincial standard.
You don't know that. Go ahead.
There may be another option here to consider, which is to have a 15-meter right-of-way registered, which would encroach, the buildings would be encroaching upon, with a condition that when it's redeveloped, when this property is redeveloped, that the dike requirements would be up to the district, essentially. So if we needed the 15 meters at the next go-round on this development, that we could have that.
I just want to jump in here and staff can help clarify for me, but I think the issue ultimately is if we don't go with the 15 meters, it is possible to build a dike in the future. It's just it's likely more complicated and more expensive. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, if there's not space, then you're either shifting the dike towards the into the water, so more environmental impacts. You have to remove riprap, replace fill, replace the riprap, so it's more costly. Or you have to look at a dike footprint that's narrower, so like a vertical type solution. Just different from the standard solution.
Right, so that's why it's not recommended.
Yes.
So I want to explore this idea of the right-of-way a bit more. Because I doubt these buildings are going to be here in 80 years, 30, 50-year-old warehouses. Should it be redeveloped into different buildings altogether? Is that something that could be considered, that we would then consider the extra?
Well, if Mayor Heinzman, we'd be happy to provide you with more space if that's what you need. If you look at the picture there, the 20 metres goes from the 50 down to the 30. So we've got another 10. We've actually got another 20 metres outside of that. You can have 40 metres out into the, actually you can actually have 49 metres out into the middle of the Catamount Slough, or to the edge of the Catamount Slough. So we're happy to let you go as far that way as you want. There's tons of room. So the idea that there's not enough room to build something in the future is just is nonsensical. There's tons of room.
But there's tons of room, but tons of cost associated with building out into the environmental and cost.
I think I think you have to look at this. The Inspector of Dikes looks at dikes from all around, mostly next to rivers all around the province. He doesn't look at dikes of very high value next to high value waterfront property, except in places like Vancouver and Granville Island. And in those cases, the municipalities, the local municipalities, come up with different standards and treatments that they want to see because the public's there the whole time. I think a seawall, a 1 metre high concrete seawall, anchored into the riprap is not a tremendously expensive thing.
Okay. Any more questions about the DP and the public, of course? Anyone in the public can speak to the variances within the DP. I'll go to Councillor Carter and Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, I mean, we just got these 3 pages today. Can you put this one up on the screen?
Mayor Heinzman, through you, that I have not seen till this moment, but that looks like a section from some months ago.
That was an old version
Yeah.
that wasn't acceptable to anybody, is my
Yeah,
understanding.
this is the version that the ADP looked at. Everybody at the ADP thought, oh boy, this is great. I mean, why don't we do this?
Mr. Hutchison?
This was what we originally suggested because it got to what Councillor Pryor was saying, is it increased the distance between the buildings. But what this doesn't work with is either Green Shores or the dike because this toe would have to come up. And so we lowered this toe down here below the path and dropped it down. So then that doesn't meet the provincial dike guidelines. And because there's not a lot of planting medium in here, it doesn't really work for the Green Shores either. So this is superior for the path, but inferior for those other 2 things. So honestly, within the 20 metre setback, you can come up with several different types of treatment. I think the treatment needs to be in the town's best interest, in the public's best interest.
Yeah,
Jonas?
Also, we also requested that that trail be moved up for operational purposes so that you don't get things blown onto the trail from the ocean, especially once the sea starts to rise and the water gets closer and closer to that trail.
That's 2 meters above the highest tide. And we're talking the Catamount. Now, did I hear, Michael, didn't you say that in areas like Granville Island, places like that, that the town got together and kind of picked a design and gave it to the community guy and said, you know, this is kind of like what we'd like. I mean, the buildings are above floodplain. I mean, if we have some variance, all I want to see is something nice for the community, and a little trail going 12 feet from a building all down that side, to me, is not what I signed up for. It's got to be nice all down that side.
To be honest, it's tough. You get caught between caught between all these different conflicting desires. One to have a very strong dike for 180 years, one to have green shores, which is a low slope like a beach, and one to have the path in different spots. It's compromised. All we're saying is we'll compromise anything you like within our 20 meters.
There's no compromise in that comment.
So,
Where's your compromise?
unless there's any more questions for clarification purpose? You were on the list, my list,
Yeah.
that's why I'm pointing out. You have a question?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Well, we asked for some clarification on the phase development agreement and what it says in there, and we're not able to produce that.
Yes, yes, I can, and I wouldn't disagree. The applicants provided to me, it contains flood hazard covenant and then the Tetra Tech report. One page is attached to the back. The difficulty is the numbers are in the subsequent pages in the report which are not attached
And there's 2
to
reports.
the PDA. There are 2 reports, same date, one with 10, one with 15. So we've been working with the 15 metre that's consistent with the flood guidelines. But again, from that drawing, it's entirely possible to put something in less than 15. Provincial guidelines, it's just more complex and more expensive.
In the future sometime.
Yeah, we're talking about if we have to add on to the 2100 level, sea level rise at that time, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. It's going to be more difficult, more expensive than having a standard dike cross-section start at the top of what the applicants proposed in his Greenshaw proposed.
Go ahead.
In the special study area in the integrated flood hazard management plan, there were 2 options. One was to include the oceanfront in the protection for downtown, and the other was to exclude it and put protection along the top of it. So if we did this, which sort of doesn't meet our standard, would we then consider putting the actual stronger dike along the top of the oceanfront? So they deciding to exclude this, they can build this way down there, but we make sure that our downtown's protected by a stronger dike at the top of this whole thing that goes across wherever we've got that right away in the integrated flood hazard management plan. Is that a possible option that we use in
Yes.
that direction?
So the special study area was to review whether and how to incorporate the flood protection for the SODC, Oceanfront Peninsula, into the overall sea dike. And so with less space to do that, it's another constraint, it's another challenge in order to actually make a sea dike go around the Oceanfront Peninsula. It's just less space to do it, more costly to do it. The alternative to putting the dike around the peninsula was to cut from the north end of the Catamount Sluice straight across the Niagara Blind Channel, which is also very costly and expensive to do that because it's raising existing roads with infrastructure and steep grade changes and all kinds of challenges. So that's what that special study was to look at: is should we just wrap the dike around the peninsula rather than having straight across from Catamount Sluice to Niagara Blind Channel?
Can I just get clarification on your recommended motion? Because I think we've asked all the questions and we should put something on the floor to debate.
Are you just going to check?
Yeah, I'll ask the public one more time if anyone would like to speak to variances in this DP. See anybody? So, I would like to put forward staff recommendations. I'm gonna get some flack, but 12-meter setback for the building. Within the, wherever that comes within the flood covenant. Seconded by Councillor Kent. Councillor Elliott.
I want to find a solution to this, but I feel like somehow our PDA has a gap in it. And that PDA is to guide this development for the next 20 years. And this sets a precedent, and I'm not sure that I want to decide that without sort of perhaps taking this back to committee and just looking at all of our different options and making sure that we find a compromise that actually works not only for our community in terms of long-term dike protection, but works for the developer, because we know we want employment lands down there. I like everything about this development permit, but I still have concerns, and I'm concerned that we just have this gap in our PDA that is not captured. And so I don't know whether to support this or not. I feel like we're making a decision without being able to just sit around the table and work it out, and without the pressure. I almost want to.
Council can defer this motion, but
I would
people to
like to defer it, but
I'm not sure. Councillor Blackenwolf.
Yeah, I'm okay with 12. I mean, I'm even okay with 10. I think at the end of the day, it's employment land. That stuff's probably more likely to turn over in terms of, 20, 30 years from now. The economy changes, new project comes along. At that point, we can, make any improvements we need. But I'm confident that, the professionals have done their due diligence on it. And so I'm okay 10 or 12.
Councillor Reyes and Councillor Chappelle.
So we're speaking to the entire recommendation?
Yeah.
Start, yeah. So let me speak to this one first. And it's unfortunate that the PDA does have that gap in it. But the one document that I think is quite clear and quite certain, or the one measurement, is the 20-meter overall setback. And so I think, in my mind, to go in further from that, I have to agree with the applicant. That would cut down developable lands, and that is outside of that agreed upon number. So if there's going to be a 10 or 15 meter setback for floodproofing, it has to be within that 20 meters. And I hope 12 meters allows green shores, because I would like to see green shores. As I mentioned, I was on the SODC board when this topic first came up, and I thought that was a real plus for the community over and above all of the things in the Squamish Estuary Management Plan, and I'd like to see that continued on the Catamount side. I don't think it will be the Catamount, probably the entire Catamount. I don't think it will apply anywhere else because of the hard shore along the Mamcorn Blind Channel and the park at the front. But here I can live with that as long as it's within the 20 meters. And so that's my feeling on that particular thing. The other variance that came up is the height, and I agree with staff. And we get kind of fussy about heights sometimes, but this is for employment, and it's going to be surrounded by higher buildings on at least one side, so I'm quite happy with that variance. There was a comment about repurposing existing buildings. I'm sure you all remember all of my campaign speeches.
Vividly.
I'd repeat them. I know you'd be fascinated by them, but I won't. But what I used to compare the oceanfront to, or my vision for the oceanfront, was Granville Island without the cement plant. Granville Island has a lot of repurposed buildings. And for me, they add to the charm of the place. They pay homage to the industrial and employment past of that area. And this, so I was thought it was kind of neat and charming that some of those existing buildings that are down there right now on the BC RP Triangle and the oceanfront lands would be repurposed and dressed up a little bit and used again in this. And so I like that idea. I think that's a great idea. And it's a bit of a contrast to the buildings that are on the other adjoining lots that we have pictures of that are more contemporary format, and so I think it's a great contrast and will add a lot of charm to the area. So I am quite supportive of that and support the resolution.
Councillor Scott?
Thank you. I also support the resolution. I'm just going through this government sea level dike, and it's so plus or minus, and they are recommendations that are going to be revised in 2025, and looking at the sea level rise, the projected sea level rise is basically 2,200, that things are really starting to change, and really protecting from scour seems more important than protecting from the splash. And I think that with the rising, with raising the land and having the dike and enough area, by the time that we have to deal with this, technology will allow for different dike designs. And mostly to the point, if this was residential, I would absolutely consider this differently, but it is employment lands, and I look at our variances for the downtown employment lands that we allowed on the ground floor with no flood protection, basically, and with dikes just along the shore there. I'm supportive of this resolution.
Also, you can go ahead. Councillor Fryer.
Well, I'm not going to support it. Of course, I wasn't part of the PDA, so I can't comment on that. I was not in those meetings. I do think it's kind of strange that staff or council's asking for contractual information and we don't have it. And that's unfortunate.
We have it, it's not there.
It's not here for us to discuss.
No, it's not in the PDA.
So we're saying that it's 15 meters and the proponent's saying it's 10 meters, and so we're going, okay, we'll be halfway and call it 12. Anyway, the big deal for me is when the time comes and these buildings are up, when you go for a nice jog down that waterfront walkway and you're going, oh boy, I'm going on the waterfront walk. Just remember, 12 feet over there, there's going to be a wall of a building that's about 400 feet long with some trees painted on it. And to me, and then the proponent talks about, I'll work anyway with you. Well, Pete, I don't believe that because that waterfront walkway was, one of the main things. Waterfront walkway was one of the main things. Michael, sorry. You know who I mean. It was one of the main things. The whole community fought for a beautiful waterfront walkway. We're not getting it. On this side, we're not getting it. Just remember that. And we could have got an extra 3 feet out of the deal or 3 meters out of the deal, but we're not getting it. And so for that reason, I'm not supporting it.
Australia.
I like this development permit. I'm okay with all the variances. I'm not going to support this motion because I actually think this piece around the dike and how it gets built and the setbacks are important and require a fulsome conversation. And to explore the idea of that right-of-way untitled perhaps to allow future town to have that right-of-way. And I just would appreciate the time to sit down with staff to do that.
I'm going to speak to this. For me, it's really important to maintain the green shores, or at least the concept of the green shores on that. We could achieve the flood protection setback as laid out in the guidelines by the province, but we'd lose the ability to do green shores. And I think 80 years from now, we can figure out a way to address this section of the dike. I don't anticipate giving this setback the whole way along, particularly in residential areas. But this is 180,000 square feet of employment lands. That's huge. We haven't had 180,000 square feet of employment lands built in a long time to that degree in one spot. It's significant. So pretty excited about that possibility. Not 100% convinced that marine camo is going to work on the warehouses. But it's hard to judge that from the pictures that are in the report. So I can support 12 meters, and I want to make sure that we get the green shores. Appreciate perhaps more conversation about this, but I think fundamentally there's a decision between harder non-green shores and get your flood protection setback, or green shores and compromise 3 meters on the flood protection setback, which may or may not happen in 100, 200 years, which may or may not cost a lot of money in 100, 200 years, and that any redevelopment of that site, we have the ability to relook at that setback in the future. Is that, can we make that part of this?
So 12 meters as a setback today and 15 meters right away, is that clear? Is that
If,
the motion?
I'm not sure if that's, I don't know if that's the mechanism, or if there's a, I don't know how we put a covenant, if the redevelopment of the site, setbacks will be renegotiated, or something like that. These buildings aren't gonna be there in 80 years, so.
So then what we could do is to keep the motion as is, statutory right of way to extend the minimum of 15 meters to the land side and 10 meters to the water side of the future natural boundary, and that no building shall be located within 12 meters of the future natural boundary. So instead of saying no building shall be located within the statutory right of way, is to say that 15 meters is the right of way, buildings can be located. You can encroach 3 meters into that right of way.
In this. Councilor Grace?
I think we want to be careful with the motion, because for me, whatever happens in the future, granted those buildings are not going to be around for 100 years, but when they are replaced, I would expect them to be able to be built in exactly the same place. I don't think we move them back at that time. All that's doing is delaying expropriation. So I think we have to be very clear about the edge where the buildings can come to now and forever. We sold them the land, it's fee simple, it's their title, we cashed the check. We can't somehow take it back now. So I think we have to be clear about that. So I'm not in favor, and from my mind, it's not part of the motion.
It isn't currently.
No, so I am voting for the motion that's there with the 12 meters instead of 15 meters.
And there is no amendment on the floor, I was just asking, trying to get my brain around the question. Councilor Chappelle?
Just to be the devil's advocate, does it get us where we, like, with that compromise, is there any possibility of building the dike? And if there isn't, why would we just maintain the 10? If we're not going to give enough in the future to build the dike, why not gain the employment land?
I believe the developer said he could do it within 12 and not compromise the development. That's what I heard from him.
If it doesn't gain either.
You can clarify that. That's what I heard. You have to go to the microphone.
Come on up, Pete.
It was my father's name, so I'm
Kind of looks
sorry for
like
that.
Pete.
Threw me off, sorry. We would like to stick within our 20 meters.
Yep.
We don't want to move the buildings. We don't want any land taken away. We can do a 12-meter dike, riprap dike, with the Green Shores protection on the outside of that to cap it all within that 20 meters without any trouble. We just want to stay within our 20 meters,
Okay.
which is what it definitely says in the PDA.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
So all these questions and this level of conversation just reaffirms my belief that, you know, we still have things to work out on this DP around what type of pathway and what kind of lighting. Like, it's not ready to go. And so what is the problem with just deferring it to committee so that we can explore all these options and not feel the pressure of having a decision over our heads? I mean, I get it, but we still have some things to figure out. And then we can talk about pathways and lighting and get it all sorted. And this goes head cleanly with everybody on side. Yes.
Just to clarify that we do have an agreement with the applicant to provide paved pathways, and it's just a matter of resubmitting the plans that show that and lighting. But we do have an agreement to
And
meet
staff didn't articulate any issues with that. They thought they were well on the way to coming to a positive conclusion. That wasn't, as I read the report, even really a problem.
Yes.
Councilor Chappelle and Councilor Craft.
Thanks, and I do think that this is, when we're in council like this is our wholesome discussion with staff in front of us and our opportunity to ask questions. I also think that to the point of gravel or pavement, we have to take into account accessibility and wheelchair accessibility. So if we're going to be building, we should ask for pavement now as opposed to waiting for the future, because just for the pure point of wheelchair accessibility.
I believe Jonas just said that they would pay.
Yes, but it was gravel or, I just want to be clear that I would like pavement on the trail and not gravel.
I believe the proponent said he would pave it. Jonas said that the proponent said that he would pave it.
Absolutely, but there seemed to be a gravel or pavement discussion.
Through you, Mayor, I would like to at least just speak to Councillor Elliott's question, why the rush? Since the provincial government brought out their budget with their new university seats for engineering, we are now in a bit of an arms race with 3 other sites to bring UBC and a technology university here. We are a long way ahead of everybody else. But all of those seats and all of that money is contingent on being up and running in 2018. We need to build this building now. We spent more than 12 months with this DP as it is. It's been a very long and very arduous process, as you can imagine. It is the first one, so I knew it would be a little bit complicated and difficult. But if we defer this, we run the risk of losing both our tenants and our opportunity to bring the university here.
Councillor Parr.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I do appreciate Councillor Elliott's concerns. I actually don't think that deferring it will get us any further along the conversation. I think the decision is fairly clear in front of us. You either get your setback and do a hard dike, or you get your green shorts and compromise 3 meters and anticipate that 100 years from now or whenever there may be additional costs. And that's the decision in front of council. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Elliott and Councillor Parr opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. District of Squamish. Next up is consideration, just looking for a public hearing date with regard to 1009 Franklin Road. This is going to be a nice short presentation.
Is this for 1009?
Yes. Council want to take a 5-minute break?
We're just setting a public hearing date?
We're just setting a public hearing date.
I'll move it. Recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Kent, that we set the public hearing date for 109 Aspen, number 2508-2016, be scheduled for April 18th, set at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you.
And we were waiting for some information to come to us so that we could have that information for the public hearing.
Yes.
Now we can schedule the public hearing.
Yes.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We lost Jason. Moving on to finance, B1, AB1, write-up of uncollectible property taxes.
Thank you, Mayor Heinzman, Council. My name is Christine Matthews. I'm Chief Financial Officer for the district. Very quickly, this outlines a request from Council to approve the write-off of property taxes. There's 13 folios included, which basically come down to 3 different property owners. We are required, because all of property tax assessment, collection, etc., is all governed by British Columbia legislation. We are required to get ministerial approval for any write-off of taxes. We have had a conversation with the ministry, and they support these, but they require council approval first. Very briefly, to outline, it's about $60,523 of taxes. However, most of those taxes for the first 9 properties, well, for pretty well everything except the last property, were actually assessed basically in error. And through various timelines and processes, we are unable for those to be fixed through the assessment authority. So we are having to fix them through this approval process. And the last one, we have done extensive collection work. The properties no longer even reside within our taxing jurisdiction area. And so it's basically a debt issue as well. It's a trailer that's been demolished. If there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer them, but otherwise we are seeking resolution for writing.
Move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Kent. I have a quick question. $60,000, we account for that in our, when we set our bylaw rate, correct?
We did account for all of them and through the various years. There's multiple years represented here, but particularly for the first 10 properties, they were in the 2016 financial plan. It was a communication error between the BC Assessment Authority and ourselves in terms of how that assessment would come through the roll. Unfortunately, so we have written that off against the 2016 financial year.
We don't anticipate any of these for this year?
I'm sorry?
We don't anticipate any of these for 2017?
Hopefully not. We didn't anticipate this one for 2016.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, Human Resources and Public Safety. There's a motion that Crystal Godfrey be appointed as an animal control officer for the District of Squamish pursuant to the community charter, and that Crystal Godfrey be appointed as a bylaw enforcement officer for the District of Squamish pursuant to the community charter. I'll move that. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Wolf. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Crystal. Correspondence for action. There is Emergency Management BC call for proposals, and there is a recommended motion that it be referred to the engineering and emergency management staff for submission, if applicable. Moved by Councillor Pryor, seconded by Councillor Wolf. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. There is a letter from, I can't remember, is it Katie Hodgson, that we, I think it was a letter was asking for a letter of support, as well as a motion that we provide a grant and aid to the North Shore Youth Department for the use of the senior center, the amount of $1351.61 from council contingency. I'll move that. Second by Councillor Chappelle. Maybe Ms. Arthurs wants to speak this briefly. We hosted the North Shore Youth Parliament last year in our Emergency Operations Center. It's about 30 or 40 kids that come from all over the Lower Mainland, Sea to Sky region, and come and have a mock parliament, and they actually debate real issues and come up with real proclamations and resolutions. And I thought they were fantastic to have them last year, hopefully providing with a bit bigger space this year at the Senior Center. They seem really keen and excited to be coming back to Squamish, and so.
Yeah. And all I was going to mention is the letter requesting the letter of support for other areas didn't make its way onto the agenda, but they are having problem locating venues, so.
Yeah. So there was a request that I write a letter basically saying, hey, we support this, we think it's fantastic, we think other local governments should support it too.
Yeah.
So we'll do both of those.
Very keen kids.
Call the question, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Question from R&D Meyer for random clothing, that the and there's a recommended motion that the correspondence be referred to the April 11th Finance and Audit Standing Committee for consideration process of the budget 2017 discussion. You moving that?
I can move that and then speak about it.
Moved by Councillor Chappelle, seconded by Councillor Pryor. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know a lot of business owners are worried about the multiplier this year for the businesses, and I also understand the difficulties in moving the dial over to residences, but I think this deserves a wholesome discussion. There's a lot of problems with growing our businesses because of space, lack of space in various areas. So eking more revenue out of our buildings that we can't expand has become an issue, and as taxes increase, we don't have any more ability to, as small businesses, and that's all that we have in our district currently. So adding the multiplier is not, it's above the provincial average. I would support moving to the provincial average, and I'd like to see that discussed with the.
Well, it's absolutely part of the conversation, always is part of the conversation. I think the letter alludes to it. There's a misperception about assessments, and they said you have to change the mill rate. We always change the mill rate to reflect the assessment. Yeah, exactly. And so I think there was some misperception in the letter, but absolutely we need to have a wholesome discussion on where the tax burden is and the rates, the formula with regard to commercial, light industrial, residential, and then this will absolutely be part of the discussion as it is every week. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then there's a letter from Jim Harvey regarding the Lambton River campground. Sorry, the actual request didn't get put on the cover sheet. Anyone have any comment?
Yep, don't we read it?
Please.
Our request now is for District of Squamish to waive building permit fees and development cost charges associated with the hookup of electrical power and the installation of a second-hand Atco trailer as their administrative office and reception area. The other request is that we waive fees for one dump truck load of creosote railway ties, but it's important to note that Shannon White worked with the Rebuild It Center and found an alternate use for them, so they didn't have to get landfilled.
So do we don't know any of these numbers, do we?
We have, basically we have a rough estimate on the building permit at about $300, but it would depend on the building permit itself. We don't have to waive DCCs in this case because they aren't applicable for for what we understand would be going on the site at this time. And then the creosote, yes, Ms. White has arranged with the campground to have 5 tons of the creosote taken actually to Squamish Rebuild, so that is a non-issue.
So if council entertains a motion to waive building fees up to $500, that will cover it?
We believe so.
Take that from council contingency?
As far, with the information we have so far, yes, that's what we believe.
Down with that, seconded by council Pryor. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence for information. Does anyone want any of these pulled? So maybe speak to the FCM one. And the seniors van. Anybody else want to pull anything? Okay. So just with regard to the FCM resolution, so this is a resolution the District of Squamish sent through, and FCM has pulled it for, I believe, to be debated on the floor at FCM, which is usually they only debate about 6 to 8 resolutions, and they pick ones that are of national significance. So I think it's quite interesting that they chose one of our resolutions that the FCM board deems to be an important enough issue for all of Canadian municipalities that we addressed directly at FCM. So that's kind of cool. Just wanted to comment on that. And then I wouldn't mind referring the letter with regard to the senior center van. Talks about making the van accessible for wheelchair, and I think that is important. I know that's not something we've contemplated in the budget, but I think it is actually a really good point. So I'd like to refer this to staff to figure out if and how we can accommodate this request within the budget or not. So a motion to refer to staff, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. A motion to receive all the correspondence. Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Black and Wolf. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting of March 21st, special business meeting March 21st, regular business meeting March 21st, and the Committee of the Whole meeting of March 28th for approval. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by, and the Committee of the Whole meeting of March 28th, seconded by Councillor Elliott. No, Councillor Kent. Look right at him and said Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. There's a recommended motion from the March 28th Committee of the Whole meeting regarding wood waste disposal. I don't want to read the whole thing. Is council okay with the whole thing?
I want to speak to it.
Would you like to move it? Would anyone like to move it? Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Councillor Race, do you want to speak to your motion?
No, it's okay.
Councillor Pryor.
You know, we had a fairly long discussion about wood waste and identify parcels of land that are available in our appropriate zone for the following combination. Wood waste recycling, that makes a lot of sense. Centralized processing makes a lot of sense. Wood waste, construction, demolition and all that, great. Limit the amount of land available for landfilling wood waste on the district. Well, I don't support any more landfilling of wood waste on our property. And then the next one, phase out wood waste landfills in the district by 2020. I really don't, you know, like we raise our hand and say, okay, we'll allot 6 more acres for filling. We're just throwing away $6 million worth of land. You gotta take,
Councillor Pryor, you have an opportunity to amend the motion.
I'd like to amend
Or
the
you could
motion
have
to
even
take
moved
those
it.
2 out. But it says limited land available on landfilling. I mean, if someone wants to land, you know, like some of the biggest loggers right now have way more land than we do.
So I don't think you want to take limit. I think you want to change it to do not make district property available for land.
Okay, thank you.
Any more?
And then the phase out wood based on development properties, we could just rub that whole sentence
You
out.
don't want to phase it out?
Well, we have one, you mean the existing one? Yeah, okay, yeah, that has to be phased out.
Yeah, I think you want it phased out, don't you?
Yeah, well, it's gonna phase itself out pretty soon, but, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you like that one,
Yeah.
but you would like to amend the bullet to say,
No landfill of wood waste on district property. Not limit the amount.
No new land allotted for,
Yeah,
No new land.
I mean, it's just such a, if we want people to.
okay, there's an amendment to change that one bullet to basically say no new land for wood waste landfilling
Yeah.
on district property. I will second that. On the amendment, I want to discuss the amendment. Councillor Race.
Well, I think it's probably getting to the same place anyway, because my recollection of that was that we have to respect existing contractual obligations either way. And so, without adding additional lands to the mix, we are obligated with some presently that would be phased out. That's the next bullet point. That's why it's important. So, so I can support it now.
Yeah, and just to remind council, there are other forestry companies out there that are looking for land to get rid of their wood waste, and they have no options right now. We will hear, just so you know, we will hear from those companies. We are saying no more district property, including crown land or other district property. So I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On the amended motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Management disposal of knotweed soil. Someone want to move that recommendation? I'll move it. Seconded by Councillor Elliott. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And correspondence from Kate Clark, Director of Legislative and Corporate Services from the SLRD, that we promise to provide consent in principle for the establishment of the SLRD invasive species service as presented at the March 28th committee. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing no hands. Committee minutes and report. Public and Corporate Services Standing Committee, there's a staff recommendation that they be received. That was a bit anticlimactic, okay? Moved by Councillor Blackman-Wolf, seconded by myself. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Committee recommendations that draft goods and services agreement, advertising bus shelters, Public Corporate Services Standing Committee meeting minutes, that staff reconsider the size of the bus shelter on Government Road at Don Ross School. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Blackman-Wolf. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And that staff bring back an amendment to the District of Squamish Traffic Bylaw, number 2012, item 412, to expand the snow clearing obligation of property owners from just business and residential properties. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I don't believe we have any camera announcements. Is that correct? Unscheduled public attendance, there is none. Open question period, clarifications related to agenda items. Anybody? Council or staff? Yes?
Well, just on that PDA thing that we never found out what Claire brought up, can we have a discussion about that later? You know, that whole mix-up on.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
probably need to amend the PDA to include that, so, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's it. I don't like seeing holes like that.
Okay, any announcements? I have a list here. I went up to Quest on March 22nd and did a little engagement with the students. Actually, the students were coming through the student center there and had a really good conversation about engaging in the provincial election, getting people motivated to vote, register, talked about a whole bunch of issues. It was great. There's such a good, smart, engaged community up there. I love it. I met with Paul Dangerfield, who is the new president of Capilano University, and there seems to be a motivation there to help re-engage Capilano's vision for Squamish, and so look forward to seeing where that may or may not go. Did a couple student interviews with some Quest students. Quest students are always doing all sorts of research projects on Squamish, and we're really quite lucky to have them engaged. The Squamish Men Shed Society opened. It's behind the Cedars or the Manors, whichever one that is. And it's kind of a really cool organization to help, particularly with social connection and sense of purpose for men of retirement age. It started in Australia. It's basically a workshop with a bunch of tools, and you can be a member, and you've downsized from your house, you're living in an apartment, you're retired, and you can come and use these tools and participate and meet people, and it's a great initiative. It's not, if there's a member, can bring any person of any age or any gender, so it's not necessarily men specific, but it's just a great initiative in the community, and I want to congratulate Timothy Kinney, who sort of spearheaded that from leadership point of view, and all the guys that were involved there. It was great. What's that? Please.
So the Men Shed as well, they are looking for donations of hand tools. They are extremely lacking in hand tools. We got off a drill press there, and they're basically renovating a lot of old tools, but are looking for donations of hand tools if anybody does it.
I think they obviously need tools for the shed itself, but if they get duplicates, they'll refurbish them and sell them as part of a fundraiser. So any kind of tools you have lying around, they would love to get them. And just quickly, I went to a grant funding presentation down in Lions Bay, hosted by our MP and MLA, Pam Gilchrist-Jones and Jordan Sturdy, talking about the funding we received for our water improvements and wellhead improvement projects to the tune of $600,000 and some odd. This was phase 2 of the phase 1, which we got for, I think it was 1.4 or 6 for our UV last year. So in the last 2 years, we've gotten almost $2 million from the federal and provincial governments to go towards improvements to our water system, which is really good. And that also included Lions Bay and Whistler and Pemberton, and they're doing the road show. They're doing the money road show right now, and we took the money, thankfully. That's all I have. Anybody else? Any upcoming events in the next week? Yeah.
CIMC conference, the marketing conference at the Quest University, run by a local company, Nordic Marketing, is worth mentioning. It's up at Quest for 2 days, and it's experts from around the world speaking to marketing expertise, which is a large event in our community.
Yeah, Marwick's done a great job of bringing in people from all over the world to these conferences, so kudos to them. And I'm sure there's lots of other cool stuff going on. I want to thank staff for pulling off a very good April Fool's joke. I know a couple people were hoodwinked. I loved Chris's comment. Studies in Denmark. This is a win-win. Anyway, thanks. That was fun.
I went down to school on the weekend and found out that we were partnering with Disney, that the New Gas and the District of Squamish were going to be partnering with Disney to build a resort up at the New Gas property. Which I was shocked to hear and forgot that it was April 1st, and I was
a little too close to the truth, maybe.
It was a little close to the truth. Oh, is that what's going on now?
I want to know who actually initiated that.
I think that was a press release.
Yeah, it was just a newsroom decided that was funny.
Yeah.
Oh, those media, they're cracking up.
Thank goodness.
Okay, motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Pryor. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.